People who are vegetarian do not eat anything that's animal flesh. And doing the best that you can to not have an impact on animal suffering.
Vegetarians eat plants and nothing that comes with animal flesh. Vegans, it's a lifestyle, they don't eat anything related to animals, whether it's what you get from the animal or the animal itself.
Yes. Oh, that's a really good definition.
Yeah. I mean, you break it down so the layperson can understand exactly what it's about.
More than jollof.
Welcome to another exciting episode of More Than Jollof, the podcast. It's me, your favorite food girl, Bukasa J. Now today we're talking about something that really interests me. I've always wondered what a fully plant-based cuisine would be like in Africa, based on the fact that we are a meat-heavy eating continent. I don't know it all, and it's always amazing to have the expert talk about it. A personal friend. Hi, Afia.
Hello.
Now, I've been rehearsing that you study epidemiology. You study epidemiology in uni as a PhD.
Yes.
How does someone who studied that shift into having an interest into plant-based African food?
Yeah, it's been a long journey. So I started 2015.
Oh, you went vegan in 2015?
2015, yeah. So it's like 9 years and some change at this point. I started when I was in my undergrad, so I was a second-year student studying immunology.
Okay.
Ologies are a lot in my life.
Agreed.
For me, I've always been interested in sustainability, and I've always cared about the planet. And even when I was in school in Ghana, I remember the first thing that really solidified my interest in sustainability. They were talking about the ozone layer.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone around me was like, oh, I don't care. And I was like, this is some serious things that we have to be thinking about. And I don't even remember, maybe class 2, class 3. And then throughout my years, that thing just came in and out. And then 2015, most people who choose to go vegan or eat more plant-based, then they say, oh, I watched a documentary.
Yeah.
And for me, that was pretty much my case. And then since then, 2015, I decided to focus on a fully plant-based vegan lifestyle, and I'm here now. It's been a very long journey. Did not start with West African food, because at the time when I started, it wasn't a diverse lifestyle. Obviously, you had the people who are ITAL, so the Rastafarians, but that was not a culture that I was exposed to. So once I had access to, people did not look like me. So I was like, I'm not going to eat jollof rice again. I'm not going to eat fufu again.
Yeah.
But I was like, I believe so wholeheartedly in my decision. But over time, things changed, and as I got more comfortable cooking, and that's why I'm now here focusing on plant-based West African foods. Yeah.
So before I go into asking about ingredients that really is categorized as plant-based ingredients of food, I think let's talk about the difference between being a vegan and being a vegetarian. A lot of people get that wrong. What's the difference between being vegan and being vegetarian?
Yeah, I've already been throwing around like plant-based, vegan. Honestly, there's so many categories. Some people are very, very adamant on this has to be this has to be this has to be this. And in Ghana, things are also a little bit different. But generally, people who are vegetarian do not eat anything that's animal flesh. So They don't eat chicken, they don't eat beef, they don't eat fish, but they will eat things like eggs.
Okay.
They will consume things like dairy. Specifically, they're called ovo-lacto people. So that's vegetarianism.
That's vegetarian.
And it's mainly centered on diets. Everything, all the different things are all focused on diet. The vegan lifestyle moves beyond that, and it's all encompassing of your life. So in addition to not consuming anything from animals, it also includes the clothes that you wear, the skincare that you use, and doing the best that you can to not have an impact on animal suffering or consuming or purchasing anything that has caused an animal to suffer. We don't live in a perfect world, we don't live in a vegan world, so it's doing the best that you can possibly do. That's the ethos that I live by. So yeah, that is the definitions, but there are lots of people on the internet who will tell you that, oh, no, when you're vegan, you can do this, you can do that, but as for me, this is all I know. I can imagine other people will have other things to say.
Okay. I think that's very explanatory. Vegetarians eat plants and nothing that comes with animal flesh. Vegan is a lifestyle, and they don't eat anything related to animals, whether it's what you get from the animal or the animal itself.
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh, that's a really good definition.
Yeah. I mean, we break it down so the layperson can understand exactly what it's about. Before I get into African cuisine and plant-based lifestyle, one of the things that I find very interesting personally, I mean, growing up during Christmas, our parents would kill they have to kill a chicken, during parties, and they have to kill a goat. So many killing of animals going on. How were you able to navigate that? You being from an African family, I'm not sure your parents are vegan or your siblings are vegan.
No.
How do you live in a household where everybody eats meat and its products, and then you decide that I am not going to go?
So yeah, the Christmas tradition is actually a very interesting thing, because my parents grew up, so both my parents are Ashanti. They grew up on different sides of the region, and for them, Christmas, yes, there was jollof rice, and maybe there was a chicken, but beans and yam, atidria and boiled yam, that is the Christmas meal. Over time, as they made more money, then the killing of the goats, that happened at home for us too. But I think it was also easier because we transitioned to living in Canada. So going to go and kill your own animal is not really a thing that you can go and do at the back of your house. They will come and collect you. So for me, again, it's my personal choice. I'm not the type of person who's going to tell that you have to stop eating meat, you have to stop. I personally think that I can sustain a life without having to involve an animal, but I can understand for certain people that that's not the values that they have. My parents don't force me to eat meat. I'm not forcing them to not eat meat. So that's kind of the line that I have followed. And for example, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, my parents are not sitting there consuming so much more meat than when we used to do during Christmas. Like maybe a small portion just for them, and everything else on the table is vegan. So my mother does a very good job accommodating me, and my sister and I usually handle those celebratory meals. And for a while, my sister was vegetarian, so our family has been very receptive to supporting our different dietary choices. So it's not a major issue in terms of Christmas, I have this opulence of meat intake, because my parents really, in tradition, that's not how they were brought up. It's really a thing of now they have the luxury to. But things have changed, and my family is not too meat-centric, so it makes things easier for me.
I like the diversity in the family. There are meat eaters, there are vegetarians, and then there's a vegan. Okay. Now let's talk about ingredients, because I'm very interested in that. What are some of the ingredients that you term good for a vegan who is in Africa?
Yeah. So I think the amazing thing is that as much as we have a lot of meat in our food, I don't find that the meat is the essential backbone of certain foods. Okay. So we have a lot of amazing grains, we have a lot of amazing legumes, we have so many greens and vegetables and things that can very much accommodate the things that you might be losing from an animal. In the end, a goat's going to go and chew grass to get you what you have. And I can understand that things are not a one-to-one substitution, but what makes this whole journey so amazing is that now I am forced to think about the diversity of things that we have. So one of my favorite places in Ghana is the northern part of the country.
My favorite. Always.
I think it's not easy to be a vegan or vegetarian in Ghana, especially in southern Ghana, where meat is quite heavy. But in northern Ghana, they do, I think the most they might eat is smoked fish on a constant basis, and maybe like Christmas, the guinea fowl or things like that. For them, those animals carry other functions, whether it's wealth or Like, we have guinea fowls in the compound, and they said that they are supposed to ward off the snakes because they are so loud. And so seeing their diets very millet heavy, very legume heavy, like wache, they'll just have the rice and the beans, a little bit of shea butter, some dawa if they are cooking other things. And that really helped me to see how, like, all the things I'm saying on social media, I'm not making it up. It's like you go and you actually see that people are eating very well, very minimally, mainly plant-based, so focused on the plants. And the meat or the fish is really a flavor component. So a lot of the times we'll be cooking, and then I said, what can we use as an alternative for the fish? And like, we'll just put that more dawa and things like that. So I know not everyone can eat a northern diet, obviously, but seeing how they eat and how they make use of the diversity of grains and legumes and greens, it shows that it's very possible for anyone who is West African or Ghanaian to be able to look within their culture to find things that will be like vegan friendly. Another tangent, small tangent. So my family is Asante, and we love abum. Abum is like my mother's fast food.
Best.
And things like kontome.
Wait, is your mother's fast food?
Fast food, yes.
Oh, okay.
Not like, sorry, yeah.
No,
like if she wants to whip up something very quickly,
it's
very easy to do. You put your turkey berries, which are very high, and like they always say that it's for blood tonic. So what people are concerned about iron, people are concerned about proteins, people are concerned about trace minerals, and your cocoyam leaves, your turkey berries, cassava leaves, adding palm oil, and all of that. You're not going to miss out on the nutrients that you are getting from the fish or things like that. That's how they ate when they were growing up, and they are healthy and strong. So those things are adding a little bit of peanut butter in there, or granite piece, and you will have a complete meal in front of you. And people don't think about that, but it's literally right in front of you.
Yeah, I think you are right. We Ghanaians always refer to the Northerners as the most athletic and the most strongest cultural group, or could I say ethnic, when it comes to Ghana, and it's true. They eat a lot of their grains, their millets, their fiber. So when it comes to nutrition-wise, I think they have a good case study for all of us to figure out that you don't need to eat a lot of meat to be strong. I'm from the southern part of the country, and we don't play with our meat. I think for the longest time, before I really got into food and understood what food is when it comes to being vegan, vegetarian, and whatnot, one of the things that I used to talk about a lot is when you're so used to a plant-based meal, and when you're so used to a meat-based meal, and you're going to eat a plant-based meal, and there's no meat on it, like the rice is like the bed. You need something in the middle.
Exactly.
Let's talk about substitution and replacement.
Yeah.
What are some of the ingredients that a Ghanaian, or let me use Ghana, you can use to substitute meat?
Yeah. So actually, one thing, I traveled a lot recently as I was preparing for a cookbook. I think that the major difference actually is the urban versus rural. So even in southern Ghana, so I spent time in the Volta, I spent time in Ashanti region, central and western. There, I guess maybe it's a conversation of economics. So in the Volta, again, their okra soup, really just the dried fish. So I don't necessarily think that Southern Ghanaians are meat lovers, but okay, maybe agree to disagree, but I still think the rural parts also do provide a small insight on what a plant-based Southern Ghanaian diet can look like. In terms of substitutions, I think people always think, I want to do a direct one-to-one, which I don't always think is the best way to approach it.
What would be the best way to approach it?
I think it's adding the diversity.
Okay.
So as I was saying, like my stews, I'll add turkey berries, I'll blend it with my tomatoes. You wouldn't really see that, but that's just boosting the nutritional value. People know about wagashi, but the same way they make wagashi is the same way that they will make soya. And as much as people think, tofu, East Asian, but they make it right here in Ghana. And one of the vegetarian restaurants I go to, they make it all the time. They fry, they season it, and you can make it as a kebab and put it on the side. I enjoy beans of all kinds.
Oh, gobe style. Gobe is one of my favorite. Top 3.
So like things like kontomire stew, for example, instead of the fish, I'll add beans into it.
Okay.
We call it konto beans. I don't know if it's
beans. Yeah, it's a thing.
Okay, it's a thing. It's a thing. I don't. Sometimes the things we eat in our household, I don't want to blanket statement it and say every Ghanaian eats it that way. But beans, adding beans into the kontomire stew, with that, and then the agushi, which is also very good for you.
Yes.
And then obviously the soya, I crumble it in to be masked by the agushi, so you see it and it's like, oh, it looks like regular kontomire stew. So those are the little things that I do. I like to add a lot of greens to my food. Okay. So if it's not kontomire, we have amaranth leaves, alefu. Those are also very good for you. Those have considerable amounts of protein that you can use to boost your meal. In the end, if you're not a bodybuilder, you don't need copious amounts of meat and fish and chicken. You can just, one day, don't take the chicken and then maybe add some greens, maybe add some beans, like emutu with groundnut soup when they add the beans to it. Yeah. Those are little things that I think are great to add as substitutions or to boost the nutritional value of the food. But I won't lie and say that it doesn't take some sort of what's the right word? Creativity and some form of learning and just trying your best to understand. I think that something about with meat, it feels like a default. But once you are not eating the meat, I didn't know about alefu. I did not know about a lot of different bambara beans. I didn't know about so many things when I was not vegan. But once I was like, well, I have to kind of figure that out. And I like Ghanaian food. I eat Ghanaian food consistently. So those are the little things that I try to do to add support my meals.
The beautiful thing about Africa is, I always say we are so similar yet so different. And this idea that you have for people to be creative and do a good substitution based on nutrients cuts across the continent. Like in Nigeria, I love their soup and stews, and it cuts across from South Africa all the way to Sierra Leone. See how they cook their jollof, what they cook with, to Senegal. Coming back, no, it's Senegal that has the jollof.
Yes, Senegal has
before they beat me. So it's interesting, but yes, a lot of people would associate Africa with game, meat and blah. But we also do have a wide range of grains and greens that we could be eating, and it's really just left for us to be able to be creative enough and also understand that it's not a switch, it's not a 1 to 2 thing, but you have to take it from an area of nutrients. You talk about history a lot. I like that. I really like that in your content. And you talk about the history of ingredients, and you talk about the perception of what Africa is and what you are trying to explain to us. How did you live in Canada?
Yes.
Okay. So how has the reception been?
I think, and this is a conversation I've had with other food bloggers in Ghana, because my audience is not mostly West African, I have to spend more time explaining things. I have a genuine interest for history. This is something that was before my interest in nutritional or food-related things, I would say. So when I find myself in a place where I have to be talking about Ghanaian food or West African food, and then I have an audience that doesn't really know much about that, plus I have this interest in history, I find that really builds substance to the content. Because it's like, okay, why do we have this type of rice? Why do we eat this way? Especially where I am, people do not like palm oil.
Because of what they've been told.
Exactly. And I don't blame them. It's not fake news what is happening in Southeast Asia. But you can't talk about the issues of Southeast Asia and then have that affect everyone.
Exactly.
So it was important for me to bring those elements so that people can understand why we eat what we eat. And so it's nice that I can bridge two of my interests together. And also with the history, help to shift the narrative about just African ingenuity in general. Before, colonialism, how much we were producing on this planet, how much food, sorry, not planet, on this continent, how much food we were growing, how much was abundant for people, and then things changed after contact with the Europeans. And a lot of things get lost. So for me, it's not easy finding resources, sources, information, but it's very important to me that if people are going to eat West African food, Ghanaian food specifically, and they haven't been exposed to our food, or they have very limited information about the continent in general, if I can add that history to it, I think it adds more value. And I also think that it helps separate me, and maybe it niches me down too much, but it's quite unique, and I enjoy it.
It is unique, and I love that it also contributes to documentation. We're always complaining that Africans, we don't have enough cookbooks, we don't have enough documentation of what our food was before everything changed. I remember talking to a grandmother of a friend, and she was telling me how easy like making jollof was, like the ingredients, and even we'll say, oh, it takes so long to make a benkwan and those things, because the process has become long based on a number of things that we are adding. But if you really have conversations with people in those era and even look at the books, you realize how easy things were, and it's important that we document. So whatever you're doing, you might be thinking you're doing it for a certain target, Canadian, but it's also for us, because we are beginning to understand a certain sphere of our cooking industry or our food that we never knew existed. So it's you're doing a great job, to be honest.
I'm personally happy for you that you're writing the book. I'm sliding it in there when your marketing team is saying, who are we sending the book to? We are here.
Noted.
But I'm really happy for you. I think you are going to contribute your quota to the documentation of our ingredients and our recipes that some of us have talked about for a very long time. Having a plant-based cooking book with accessible African ingredients, is amazing. So I'm really happy for you. Congratulations. You will come back on here when the book is ready. Let me just let you know. I mean, are there also other exciting people who are also doing something similar to what you're doing? Could you mention a few and just tell me why the activities excite you so much? What is it like for the continent or Ghana in general when it comes to having a plant-based cuisine?
Yeah, so there is actually another Ghanaian creator that I follow. She is half Ghanaian, half British. She's based in London or England, specifically. And her mother is of Northern Ghanaian heritage. So she does mix Ghanaian food flavors. Mine tends to be more traditional. Hers includes fusion. And I love that. I like that people are using what we have and showing it in a diverse light, also within the plant-based field. Because I mentioned England, there's so many West African creators in England who are creating plant-based versions of our recipes.
I think a significant thing in terms of my journey has been my skin. Acne runs in my family, my sister, my mother, me. When I first decided to go vegan, I had just come from a terrible relationship with food. First year in university, new country, being a teenager and things like that, growing up, I had a lot of bad body image issues. So I think that really affected me. And so when I chose to go fully vegan, I kind of had to get myself, reset myself. And then as I started to introduce more African foods into my diet, I think my skin has actually gotten so much better. My mother's acne, I think, continued well into her 30s. But now it's not something that I'm struggling with. It's just a little bit of scarring now. So that's a major difference. And most people, when they're talking about skin, drink more water, eat less fats, things like that. But me, it was stay hydrated, minding my business, but also eating my African foods. With nutrition, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I don't provide people with nutrition information. But as a vegan, you are going to be asked, where are you getting your protein? What about iron? What about this?
Yes.
So even the diet itself, I would say the lifestyle itself positions you to be a better consumer or understand the food you're consuming a lot more. So for me, I'm thinking about, okay, I'm taking berries not because it makes the food nice, but I know that it is, my mother would say mojadru.
Yeah.
So black tonic, I know that that's what it's going to offer me.
Yes.
I know that I'll eat bambara beans today, I'll eat black eyed peas today, I'll eat etc. today, because I know each one of them is going to give me something different.
Yeah.
All of that I was not thinking about when I was eating meat, because I know that the meat there, okay, I will get what I need.
Yes.
So in addition to the health benefits that many people experience, and that really depends on how you are controlling what you are eating and diversifying your plates. That's the most important thing that I always tell people. But it just makes you an informed consumer.
Yeah, I think it's also very important. Like, you know what you eat, and they say that what you eat is what comes out. You're a reflection of what you're eating.
Exactly.
So it's very important. Now that you've told me that we don't need to buy any more skincare, we can just go vegan and we're fine. I'm keeping that in my pockets, because those skincare things are, crazy. But I mean, you make a valid point. I'm really so happy for you, and I love that you're so informed about the decision that you took, and also have taken the decision to educate the rest of us about what it means to be vegan in an African community or in an African household. And I pray that, all these things that you do across the platforms, and also your book that's coming out, will reinforce the message that you want to spread when it comes to having a plant-based diet. I'm really excited that you came.
Thank you.
Thank you for contributing to the industry that we are in. And maybe, no promises, maybe one day I'll go vegan.
I always tell people, and I really want this to be a driving message, is that for me, I'm not here to tell everyone how you should eat, but I am here to show inspiration that if you are considering eating less meat, which I think is an amazing thing, then you can start where you are at. And I do this so that people know that you don't have to get rid of your fufu or your jollof rice or your cocoa and beans. You can still eat that and still maintain a plant-based diet lifestyle. So that's all that I'm here for. If you can make small changes, I'm happy. If you want to change completely, I'm happy regardless.
Thank you. Now, that was a really informative episode. Thank you so much for joining us. They say you are what you eat, and that's really true. I had a fun time with Afia, and it's really important that you decide on a cuisine that works for you, works for your body, and even works for your community as a whole. If you want to reach Afia, ask her any questions, or just consume her content, she's on all the platforms. Eat with Afia. If you also want to support us, we are on YouTube as More Than Jollof, the podcast. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and all the podcast streaming platforms. Another time, next week, we'll be here to talk about food and show the amazing innovators, chefs, street food vendors, and the people shaking and moving the industry. See you next week. Bye.